Test, test.
Test, test.
Test, test.
Test.
Testing. Test, test.
You at the gym 5 days a week right now? 7 days a week? 10 days a week?
Bit different.
Oh, yeah.
We're still down. We're only 3 or 4.
Really? There wasn't a big long lineup of people applying for the job?
Oh, yeah, there was. And then they all say no.
Oh.
They apply just because they can.
Oh, I gotcha.
And then they realize that
Where we're at?
something they don't actually want or they can't actually do, and then they decline it.
Okay, we're live on Zoom. Okay, well, it's 3:30. You guys good? I wish to call order the Harbour Authority meeting on September the 7th at 3:30 p.m. Council would like to acknowledge the Ucluelet First Nations on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Notice of video recording. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Are there any late items? Hearing, seeing none. Looking for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Looking for the adoption of the May 4th regular Harbour Authority minutes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mayor's announcements. I don't have any, but I do want to just make a little shout out again regarding Mr. Komodo's passing recently, and I know that later on in the pack in this agenda here, Mr. Courts has got some good ideas, and we'll see what we can do here for people like himself that was a staple in our community down on the harbor. Public input. Any public input via Zoom?
None via Zoom.
Any via the telephone?
None via telephone.
And lastly, any emails? Nothing but time. You're not a counselor right now.
None via email regarding this Harbour Authority meeting.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports. We have 4, starting with the Harbour Master Plan. Ms. Fortune, welcome.
And test, yep. Okay, you guys can hear me? Okay, so in front of you, you have, ta-da, the Harbour Master Plan. So Phil Rinn from Urban Systems is going to be doing a presentation on this in just a moment. But I thought I would start by just explaining the recommendations to you at all, because this is the first time you've seen the full report. If you have any alterations, changes, you'd like to see something more, you'd like something to tighten up area, we just want to give you guys the opportunity to do that. The hope is that we are then able to turn it over to DFO. DFO does have to approve this. They have been a part of this process, just so you're aware. And then we'll do final approval once DFO is given their nod of approval as well. So I just wanted to be clear with you guys on that. Is there any questions along that line?
Just a question regarding DFO.
Yes.
What did their involvement look like there during this process?
So their involvement, we tried to get them on a little bit earlier, but weren't able to. But we did. They were involved with when we had group meetings, and one of the group sections, we had quite an extensive meeting with DFO. It was, I think, went extremely well. So the group that we met with has since changed again. So they've got a new person for our area who I've yet to meet with. Kevin did meet with 2 weeks ago, I believe. And so we are creating that relationship. So I'll be reaching out to this individual with our updated master plan once we get the approval from the Harbour Authority to move forward on that end of it. And then as I believe what are you guys called? Harbour Authority member, I believe you asked for them to come and have meet with the Harbour Authority. So we'll get that set up either in November or in February. So that's where we're focusing on there. So the other thing I just wanted to point out that we did have which Phil will be talking about, we did have quite a few in group sessions, which I think worked extremely well, and we're very pleased with the input that we got from the community. One being Doug Komodo, which is kind of a neat moment there. As you know, we are looking at the three major areas, the north, central, and south of the Harbour Master Plan, and supporting reconciliation, environmental protection, harbour management operations, commercial and recreational access, the visitor experience, of course, the outer boat basin, the inner boat basin, Whiskey Dock, Pat Leslie Memorial Boat Launch, and Alder Park Street. The intent is once we adopt this overall, we will share this document with the community and the people that were involved. So if you have no immediate questions, I'm going to pass this over to Phil. And Phil, are you online? There he is.
I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
You bet, Phil. Welcome.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone, for having me here. It's great to be here, not to provide you with an update, but to actually walk you through the document and where we've gotten to over the last, I think it's a year and a half now, if I do my math right. So thanks very much. And I also wanted to recognize Doug Komodo, and as Abby rightly pointed out, he was part of one of the one of the workshops that, and we'll go through, I'll just highlight where that was, but with the commercial fishers and actually with the discussion with DFO. So DFO, in addition, just to answer your question there, Mayor, quickly, in addition to the direct meeting we had with DFO, they actually joined us for the virtual workshops, one of the sessions there as well with the commercial fishers and Abby and Kevin and myself. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to attempt to share my screen. I see that it's disabled. Could someone please enable that? Okay, it looks like it's going to work here.
You're good to go.
Okay, thanks, Abby. I'm going to actually pick this screen and see if it works. Okay, can everyone see that? Not quite, maybe.
Yeah, it's kicking over now. We're good. There you go.
Okay, great. So that's just the title page. Now, I just want to point out here, this is going to be a lot of information, right? So we've been coming to you since September of 2020 with updates. I'm not going to try to go through and recreate and describe the whole master plan, but I am going to try to give a high-level overview. Just let me try to change my, there we go. A high-level overview of, and a reminder, right? What is this master plan? Why are we doing it? An update on the timeline and key milestones, including what will happen after this meeting. Again, a reminder, you folks know it well, but it's good to have front of mind the harbors at a glance. As Abby mentioned, kind of the north, center, and south, but also what are those specific assets and how are they managed, owned and managed between the district and DFO? I think that's an important distinction. Now, some new information, we won't go through in detail, but again, just kind of some key examples and highlights, the utilization and demand of the harbor, the condition assessments of the infrastructure itself, and how does that tie to the district's long-term planning. A really quick overview of the community and partner engagement that we went through. And, the Harbour Authority has been involved in setting that direction the whole way. So it'll be good, I think, to just report back on how that went and where to look for more information within the Harbour Master Plan and the appendices. Really quick, the challenges and opportunities, as well as the meat of the document and where I'd like to spend a little bit more time going through, which is the Harbour priorities and recommendations. So what did the plan yield? So here's the quick reminder, what and why are we doing the Harbour Master Plan? So first of all, it's an update to the 2012 plan. It's intended to be done every 5 or so years. I'd say 5 to 10 years, probably in practice. But there's a few key high level goals here that it needs to achieve. So one is it allows us to actually assess the district owned and managed harbor infrastructures, right? So that's the recommendations we'll go through later. Probably the biggest thing to put up front there is supporting the twin pillars of local economy. So the harbor related industries and the tourism that community relies on, and has relied on for decades and will continue to. And as Abby mentioned, they're align and support with the community's vision, goals, and objectives. So the 2020 draft OCP, the 2017 ECDEV plan, and the 2019 to 2022 strategic plan. The other thing it needs to do on top of, support those documents is really reflect the needs and values, not only of DFO and of the district, but also of this harbor authority itself, right? That sets the direction and implements the harbor bylaws and things of that nature, as well as we've mentioned, the partners and stakeholders and user groups that go within that. And then I guess just one last high level goal is just creating a more effective harbor front. So kind of these competing needs of commercial, recreational, industrial, federal interests, how do those kind of come together, and how do we do that by maintaining and enhancing the harbor's character and charm, and that Yuki grit that everybody knows so well. Okay, and I should mention too, I'm going to go pretty quickly, but if there's any quick clarification questions, please feel free to stop me, and otherwise we'll have some questions, some time for questions at the end. So you've seen this timeline in some different forms before. I just want to highlight a few things here. One is the initiation and kind of that upfront work started in May of last year, together with the Harbour Authority and meeting at these times here in the bottom left. We came back to you folks a few times with our approach and reporting back on the online survey and interactive mapping that happened at the end of last year, as well as the virtual engagement workshops, the 4 workshops that we held in March and April. We did have, as Abby mentioned, a review meeting with DFO just to make sure that everyone was kind of on the same page with where we're heading and actual creation of the report here, which has happened over the last several months and over the summer. And then we're here, reporting and presenting the final draft to you folks. There will be one more meeting here with DFO either this month or next month, and we plan to present back one final presentation and for adoption. I believe that would be the November 30th Harbour Authority meeting. So that's just a quick overview of the timeline and where we're going.
There's a quick question, if I can, Phil.
Sure.
The DFO review, I know that none of this board is participating in that unless we're going to have one or two of us in the room. I'd be curious just to get the pulse of that. Okay.
Hello, there you
Yeah,
go.
there you are.
Sorry.
There's Abby.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to join us. If what we can do is Phil and I can set the date, and if one or two of you would like to join.
I think that would be important just
By
for a
all
couple of
means.
us to understand the pulse.
Of course.
Okay, that'd
Of
be
course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be no problem at all. We'd love to have you.
great. Appreciate that. Okay.
Okay, so I won't spend much time here. Again, just north, center, south. I do want to make one new distinction, though, that maybe we didn't spend as much time highlighting before. And that's really just that the small craft harbor, which is made up of the inner boat basin, the outer boat basin, and 52 steps or Otter Street dock, those are owned by DFO. The docks are owned by DFO, but they're operated by the district. Okay, so anything small craft harbor, really, that's true. DFO owned, district operated. There are other assets here that the Harbour Master Plan addresses, but they're district owned. So we do have to distinguish the responsibilities for maintaining them, for upgrading them, etc. So Whiskey Dock, or the Main Street Wharf that was previously divested from DFO, that's one. And then we also address the smaller kind of park infrastructure, the Pat Leslie Public Boat Launch and Alder Street Park. And I guess I'll highlight this a little bit later, but the other big distinction is for the small craft harbor in general, capital costs are borne. So improvements to the harbor infrastructure, like replacement or repair, that's DFO's responsibility versus kind of the operations and maintenance, cleaning, things of that nature. Those are district responsibilities. So that'll become important as we go through here. Okay, so again, just a quick reminder, the inner basin is here. We have a parking lot, the outer basin, mostly commercial. If you can see my cursor here in the top right, and then we have the Pat Leslie boat launch just over here by the seaplane base. Moving towards the center, Whiskey Dock, district owned, next to the aquarium, and we have some new kind of waterfront municipal improvements happening, including parking at Cedar Road. And to the south here, 52 steps are Otter Street Dock and the Alder Street Park adjacent to Yuki Ice here. Okay, so how are the harbors actually utilized? So thanks, especially to Kevin, the harbor master, for providing us this background information. So revenue and costs, but also utilization. All those logs and records over the last several years. So this graph here shows from January 2019 to April of 2021, what are the actual vessel counts? And we can see here that the majority of the vessels are 0 to 30 feet here in blue, 35%, and 30 to 50 feet, another 50%. So really between 0 and 50 feet are making up more than 3/4 of the boats. And that's what we can see here with the blue and the green. And we can also see that the commercial boats, the larger vessels are quite steady. They do have a bit of a bump in the high season here around the summer, but nowhere near kind of the smaller boats. And now these are blended. Okay, it's not split by commercial and recreational, but the size of the vessel will indicate a bit of a trend. Now, I just want to highlight those two humps because when we look at the moorage demand, this graph here, it's the same timeline, January 2019 to April 2021, but we have what's called exceedances, where basically more boats than the dock can handle during the high season here in 2019, and even more last year in 2020. So at these times, really what's happened is rafting will happen at that time, or parking boats side by side, that kind of thing. So anyway, that shows us that there is seasonal pressure, the overcapacity on those docks, and it's really the management on the ground by people like Kevin that allow the dock to function well and to handle those exceedances. Okay, so I want to just bring you through the infrastructure condition assessment. So it's easy to get in the weeds, so I'm going to try to stay as high level as I can. We're not going to go through the numbers in detail. I'll let you folks do that within the document itself. But I do want to kind of show some trends and also share how the numbers were derived and what information was already collected before we really started the Harbour Master Plan process. So the first thing is that these are for hard infrastructure like the docks, the real wood and the piles and those things. So DFO hired a couple of firms to do some assessments of the inner basin, the outer basin, and 52 steps back in 2017. And it really focused on the short term, 5-year capital and maintenance costs. So really we're coming to the end of what those assessments were in 2022. But it was quite detailed. It was almost like on a pile by pile basis. So very good for short term costs and tasks. The district in the meantime has gotten some kind of parallel assessments done by a company called VFA. So not quite the same here. You'll notice that the DFO didn't do one for Whiskey Dock. So that's a gap here that the district initiated, but they have inner basin, 52 steps, and Whiskey Dock. So, and I'll show what this means a little further, but basically this looks like more like the 20-year replacement cost of the dock and or the other infrastructure pieces that fit within it. So what that allows us to do and what we did within the plan is calculate the average annual capital investment over the next 20 years. So I'll show what that means. The other important piece here is this is a higher level assessment than the DFO initiated ones. And by that, I mean that the assets are grouped. So it might be, this group of docks needs this much money, not this particular dock needs X, Y, and Z. So those are just a few high level things to understand as we go forward. So I'm just going to give one example. Okay, I'm just going to focus on the long-term capital planning. So just for the inner basin dock only. So as an example here, we have the asset IDs on the left. So each one of the dock assets, like DSO 001 here is the kind of main docks versus kind of like the gangways or ramps, I should say, at 2 and 3 versus the buildings themselves, like this bathroom and laundry building here. So each one of these has a 20-year capital investment cost or in some cases replacement cost that's been quantified. Okay, so that's been quantified. This is just showing the long-term piece here, a 10-year piece, and I won't get into the details, but you can see this is for all of Smallcraft Harbour, 52 Steps, Interboat Basin, and the Whiskey Dock, and then it's classified into different types of improvements here on the left. So don't worry too much about the detail, but what that yields is, in this case, for example, it shows, well, to replace those main docks, might cost over $1 million, and the VFA assessment shows it all up front. What we've really done is turn that sideways and looked at what is the average annual investment that would be needed to keep that dock going. So it's not, what we understand from Kevin and team is it's not likely they would replace the full dock at once. So it's more annually, incrementally, every few years, how much money do you need to keep that dock going?
And Phil, I'm just going to jump in for a second. And
please
that's,
do. Thanks,
that's
Abby.
also more of DFO's responsibility than our own.
That's right.
Just so I'm really clear. And what you're looking at is replacement costs, not that needs to be done tomorrow. But if we were to look at the overall picture in terms of replacing facilities, that's what we're looking at.
Yes, great distinction, Abby. So it really becomes, a tool that, for example, the district can use to negotiate or to have a dialogue with DFO about what the improvements are needed down the road, et cetera, things like that. So it's a way to bring some reality and not just rely on DFO's assessments for what might be needed down the road. Okay, so I'm going to switch away from the finances here back to the engagement. So this is really just a reminder. Most of you have seen this before. So we had an interactive map and community survey that was conducted. We had it open for about 6 to 8 weeks, and it yielded a series of maps with comments and recommendations that really got pulled into the later part of the document. So there's a full engagement summary, including the survey responses that go into this first engagement that happened. But overall, these have been brought into the overall recommendations. So I'll bring those a little bit later. I'll bring those forward. Perhaps something that's a little bit more new. This is also included in Appendix G in the report, were the virtual partner and stakeholder workshops. So we had 3 in March and 1 in April, and they were broken down into these general groups. So the business community, including the landowners and business owners nearby, the commercial fishers, including DFO that I mentioned earlier, the service providers, so in particular emergency services, but also Ucluelet South First Nation, and then finally nature and adventure groups, or you might call them tourism and environment. So the aquarium and different types of local tourism operators. So these were super informative and engaging sessions, and I personally learned a lot through them. And the way that we kind of tried to facilitate the discussion, they were a little more organic, was how do you currently use the harbors? What are the challenges that you are undertaking every day? And what is your future vision, for the next 20 years of the harbor? So those are, I think, provided in quite significant detail in the appendices. And I would encourage anyone to have a look there. There are there's all kinds of detail in there that's not captured in kind of the overall recommendation, and it might be very useful context for other purposes as well. The document does provide a pretty good narrative about the key challenges and opportunities, and I won't go through them in detail now, but there's at least a paragraph, if not more, about each of these, kind of conditions that occur around the harbor. So what's the current thinking on the asset management planning at the district, and how does that tie in? We talked about the capacity constraints and the physical condition just now. The balancing the demands of the user groups through the engagement, that's another obvious one. And then kind of these things I think that we know: increased harbor use, seasonal harbor use, and the environmental impacts. One kind of new one here that's come up, and I would say this is unresolved. It doesn't need to be resolved within the Harbour Master Plan, but it's a trend that's occurring that the district and or the Harbour Authority will likely need to address and more as the years go on, and that's private mortgage buoys and anchorages, and the harbor bylaw may be one vehicle that can help to control that kind of thing. And then the opportunities here. So again, there's more detail about these. They're just the headings, but I think these go without saying, these are the main uses that we have along the harbor now. So the opportunities are really to enhance and increase those services and those uses. I will not go into the guiding principles, but I think this is a great graphic, and I think each of the principles is important. They really tie back to the challenges and opportunities and kind of what we heard of the engagement, but things like ensuring universal access to the harbors for different people of different ages and abilities, for parking, for business and tourism, etc. Fostering relations and relationships with the commercial and First Nations fisheries and services, and really supporting the working harbor, those existing uses and characters. So I'll leave it there on the principles for now. But they do really inform, and I think you can look back to the principles on all the recommendations and say, yeah, does this make sense? Does this align? So where we're heading, and there's a pretty significant section that lays out all of the priorities and recommendations that we heard and where we got to in terms of how they're being classified. So they're generally classified, say, by geographic zone here, just the same as what we talked about with the mapping at the beginning. So the small craft harbor and then the district owned assets, but also some really good overall high level recommendations. So how does this impact the harbor management and operations, pedestrian and visitor experience, things of that nature? And all of these recommendations are broken down and kind of ranked, if it were, by time in terms of, is it an ongoing priority? Is it something to be looked at in the next 5 years, or medium term 10, or long term kind of over the next 20 years, or 10 to 20, I should say. So I won't go into those in detail, but I will show that section 5 is really a summary of the previous section 4, and only shows a couple things. One is ongoing or priority 1, so only things immediate or within the next 5 years. But it also shows the responsibility or the assumed responsibility for making these come to reality, right? So moving these initiatives forward. So again, I don't think I'm going to go into a lot of detail in all of them, but I will go through a few, at least the headings. So commercial and recreational access, that's a pretty obvious one. It's the district and the community. It's a priority 1, and in particular, this is around emergency services. So actually, I think this heading maybe should be changed, but it's really about the emergency services and having dedicated emergency parking zones for land-based emergency services and staging for water-based emergency. So that's one. We've got a few specific things here, more ongoing about the pedestrian and visitor experience. And then some inner boat and outer boat basin. I think the outer boat is, again, we talk about here, emergency vehicle access and increased parking capacity. work with commercial fishers and service providers for future improvements to the outer boat basin. So for example, potential expansion, and or if there were to maintain a minimum number of docking slips designated for commercial vessels at the interior. That's something where we see the district and the DFO kind of sharing responsibility for that. As an example, it might be Kevin's, Kevin and team might make sure that there's enough dock space available for the dock space they have, but potentially maybe the dock needs to be increased in length. So that's why we show this shared responsibility here. And then finally, back here again, for example, the whiskey dock. One thing we really heard was about coordinating public use during tourist season with the commercial use and other uses that happen there, including for public gathering space. And then kind of very specific and pragmatic upgrades, for example, to the Pat Leslie Memorial Boat Launch. Ensure it's usable at low tides throughout the year for larger vessels. Ensure that the circulation and parking situation is improved, to reduce conflict and encourage use, things of that nature. So I think I'll leave it there for now. And I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but I can go back and look at slides, or we can discuss in more detail if you like. And also I'll open it up to Abby in case there's anything else, Abby, you wanted to highlight in there.
Well, I think that's good. Thank you very much, Phil. I think the overall process went extremely well. And thanks to the Harbour Authority for giving us that little extra time, because I think it made a big difference in terms of being able to have the community workshops and the outreach with what we were able to glean the information. Is there any questions that we can answer? Or
Look to my left. Any questions? Councillor McEwen?
Thank you. Through the chair to staff. Thanks for the presentation, Phil. It was a really interesting report to read through. Going back to the private moorage buoys and anchorages, what authority do we actually have over boats that are anchored in our harbour? The one example that I'm concerned most about is a decommissioned ferry was recently towed into the harbour, and I've heard from several sources that the intended purpose is a floating casino. And so just wondering what authority we have over something like that.
so in terms of that is something that we're looking into a little further. That's one of our hopes, to have that further discussion with DFO in terms of jurisdictional end of things. Right now, they're sitting in our jurisdiction. So I don't have a full answer for you on that one, but it is something that we're looking into, and it was something that was identified in the report. And no, I don't want a floating casino in my front yard.
No, thank you. And just to follow up to that, it does make it fairly clear on page 57 that there are multi-jurisdictional areas,
Yes.
which complicates matters.
That's correct.
But potentially fine-tuning a bylaw would give us some teeth.
Absolutely, and I can look into that a little further and maybe have a report for you guys in November.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sort of tagging on to what Marilyn just asked, I would assume that a floating casino option would also be the same. It's been asked of me if we knew the authority of somebody having a buoy that they tagged basically a live-aboard houseboat on out there, and who had the say of who can do what, where, and when, and who can actually say, no, you can't do that. So I guess that's the same idea.
Yeah, and exactly. That is something we are just looking into, that, as I said, came up during the process. And we'll try and get some more information. And the big issue, as you both pointed out, is jurisdiction, and often multi-level jurisdictions. And how do we navigate that? Not to create a pun on that one.
Just to follow up on that, if there was a floating casino, the idea of someone being injured or sick, and how does emergency services respond to that is another whole kettle of fish.
Oh,
You have anything? I Phil, first off, like Councillor McEwen had stated, I really appreciate this document, because I think it's has a little bit of everything that we've been trying to talk for a number of years about some of the things we'd like to see get done in the harbor. But the scary part, I think the report's the easy part. I think the priority list that's here, you know, I know we all have our own independent priorities, and I think that I'm hoping in the fall you're going to present something to us because, you know, when I think about, you know, Whiskey Dock, for example, in the report it states that more tourism activity and pushing away the commercial activity. And if you're going to do that, then what kind of dock space are we going to give to these commercial guys to mend nets, etc.? You know, I know that, and it's clearly it's listed in here. And I'd hate to see a few years down the road that priorities 1 and 2 are simply in the document because everything here is going to take money. Yep. And you know, when you talk about monitoring what's going on in the inlet, we can barely monitor what goes on land here in our jurisdiction, let alone what's going on in the district. So, and I'm sure that we're not alone in the harbor communities. Hence why I'd love to be able to at least have a couple of us in that next DFO meeting,
Yep.
so we can support you guys
course.
in your guys' endeavor about in that.
That'd be great. Thank you. Sorry, just for clarification, did you want an overall priority list?
Well, I think they got some priorities on here, and I think maybe it might take a little working meeting, or maybe just I don't know how you want that to flow
Okay.
out because
Okay.
you've got your little priority list, and then I think that all of us will do have a few as well, and
Absolutely.
you know I think about the boat launch, and it talks about, and I like it that you talked about invasive species. It's something that we don't talk about. You know, you can go to Sprout Lake and then you can zip over here, and this is provincial federal jurisdiction. But at the end of the day, giving people ability to wash down vessels. What does that look like? It sounds expensive to me, and
Yeah.
I think that we need to start getting there sooner than later.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just have one other question through the chair to staff. 52 Steps has always been our custom stock.
Yes.
And if that was divested to the District of Ucluelet, how would that change, or would it change?
He needs a microphone now. Do we have a spare mic there for him?
No.
No. We'll get you a mic. You can just speak into that, Kevin. You're okay. We should have had that prearranged for you. I'm sorry. We'll be better prepared next time you come.
Just that'll just go on your lapel.
Got it. Sorry, guys. There we go. Yeah, so as I would see it, if we took over that, I would definitely recommend we do a partnership with Customs, and that would remain. It would also help with offsetting some of the cost of maintaining the dock. If we were able to offer that to a certain spot just for Customs, we could reserve a space off on that dock just for that usage. So.
Great, thank you.
DFO, are they still talking about 52 steps is not a necessary asset? Are they giving that up yet?
That's one of the discussions we need to have with them.
Okay.
They kind of talked around that when we met with them. So I think to me, and I think Kevin would concur, we do want to have a little bit stronger conversation with them. The other thing we have to look at with 52 steps is what condition it's in right now, and do we want to take that on as well? So I think there's a number of things that need to be looked at, but and Kev, correct me if I'm wrong, but we definitely need the space.
Yeah, absolutely. The space is something that the community, as you can see, all summer.
You're on.
I'm sorry. All summer that it's mostly been local usage, and it's actually quite encouraging the amount that's being used. If we took it on as a divestiture, DFO would have to, through under contract, get it up to a certain level, and then it would be ours to maintain. Similar to when Transport Canada divested Whiskey Dock to us, they got it to a certain level, and then it was ours to look after.
It sounds good in the beginning.
Yeah.
Councillor Cole.
So with the 52 steps, we already offered before, asked if they would divest, and they said, no, we're just going to take it away and junk it and cut it up and whatever. And then it went away mysteriously, so at your last meeting with them, was it a fresh topic again, or is it something that will become a fresh topic if we bring it up, or should we just be staying quiet about it for now?
I think it was it was in some level it was a fresh topic when we met with DFO, but then they've since had a changeover of staff. So I think we're starting at square one. And from my understanding of the history, a little bit of it, yes, there was that moment that they were going to divest it or take it away, but because it's a custom dock, there was some concern that that there would not be a custom dock, so they kept it. Kevin, yes, that's correct.
So my talking with Canada Border Services, because DFO was going to take it down to 60 feet, and that's all they're going to remain and give it to CBSA. Talking with CBSA, I told them as a management of that dock, it would be impossible to keep the 60 feet available for them for customs. Then DFO held off on removing the whole dock, and then things have changed. Talking when I had my meeting with Mina and Valerie being the new representative for DFO. Divestion's kind of on the back burner, but they're also not looking at removing the dock at this point. So something to discuss when the time comes, what their priority is on that dock. So.
Well, they've gone very quiet because they're very absent from these meetings.
Yeah.
We had a good run for about 18 months.
Yeah.
With Spencer there, and then and I hope that's the reason that I would like to have a couple of us present there, because I think it's important.
Absolutely.
With Zoom now, there's no reason why they can't participate. Coming here for 2 nights, we can live with a Zoom meeting. They need to understand, the importance of our harbor, and
We'll get them to the next meeting.
please do.
Yeah.
Also, I would just also confirm that the 52 Steps is always busy and full and has been all summer, and there's even been no space at times. So.
Yeah.
Very busy.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe one thing made me nervous in your report, Phil, was the liveaboard conversation, and kind of thinking that I think I read it was perhaps maybe down in the 52 step area, and I just get terrified about liveaboards and what that could look like. And anyways, I guess it'll be a more fruitful conversation a little bit later on down the road.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it is a discussion for, when the asset becomes yours or closer to yours. But we did get quite a bit of feedback on that. And Kevin, maybe I'll open out to you in terms of the demand that you're seeing and maybe the opportunity that you have there if, for example, electrical and other services were provided.
And just in my defense here, when I think liveaboard, I'm thinking floating Strawberry Island. What's in front of Tofino? That's what I'm thinking of liveaboard.
Well, what the vision would be float homes. So already pre-manufactured, structured, put in place. There's a lift station at the bottom of 52 steps. So the septic's not an issue. There's 3 phases at the top by the dumpster. Other than money, it's not that part of an issue. They own, if we divest, it's ours, a large swath of land that you don't see. It's mostly trees and stuff. That's still ours. We can remove the stairs, put in a ramping system, or go to an engineer, some of the better math mind than mine, and figure out a better approach to that dock as well. So it's definitely a viable possibility. It was something to explore. Housing's always an issue. It's just a different way of looking at it, right? So there's
We have
enough
parking.
water. Parking is the killer, like most places in town, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
depends on the amount of units.
Any last ones for Phil or the master plan? Thanks again, Phil. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And it's been a great opportunity. So I just thanks again, and I'm looking forward to my next visit.
Yeah, great. Okay, safe travels out there.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, if you didn't have work before, you definitely have lots of work now. So.
Forward.
Yeah. No, it's great. I think it talks, it's from low-hanging fruit to high-level stuff, so it's good. Oh, thank you. Keep me on track. You can do your thing, Miss.
That's correct. Yes, so it's optional there for you just to move forward, but the goal is to see where you're at and then move forward to DFO if possible.
Sorry, so is the information that we would be looking for saying Anchorage and these other outlying questions wouldn't affect anything that we're sending to DFO now?
That's correct.
I didn't. Go ahead.
I was just going to make a motion, unless you had.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll save that a little bit later on. Go ahead.
Okay, I will move that the Harbour Authority direct staff to forward the amended Ucluelet Harbour Master Plan to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, DFO, for their review and approval.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. No, I don't think there was anything in there that's alarming for DFO. I think it's more onto us. It's going to be the workload of who's going to take this on. This is all I saw was this is a half-time person taking this stuff on to really manage it properly. But hey, we'll wait for your next report to tell us the strategy, how you're going to get through it, okay? No, Kevin works for Misfortune, so it's...
Thanks.
Perfect. Okay, moving along. Mr. Courts, Harbour Manager Report, September 2021. Crazy, we're September 2021.
Actually, if I may, before we start the report,
Yep.
Joey, could we cue the YouTube video? Do you guys mind watching a quick 4-minute YouTube video?
Yeah, for sure.
No, it's not a meme.
Yeah.
My name is Doug Komodo. I'm a third-generation fisherman based out of Ucluelet. It was in 1975. I started skippering the Laprousse, and I was 10 years young or even younger when Father would let me go. Now the whole idea is to fish selectively and avoid bycatch. We can use certain gear to catch bigger fish, target fish that we want to catch, and we're using barbless hooks, so any fish we want to release can be released without harming the fish. These plugs are fluorescent. They glow in the dark. These hoochies are glow in the dark too. So this color is actually supposed to look like a krill or shrimp. These are a flasher. This is what you call a spoon. All this gear will catch salmon. So this is the way the gear would work here. This snaps onto the line like this, and I'll put it in reverse and it would go down. If I had a fish on here, it would be something like this, and I would hit it and gaff it and throw it into the... We're only fishing 4-day trips now, so the fish come in to the unloading station really fresh, and we try and get them off to markets as soon as possible. Myself, I like to fish above Estevan more. You get better quality fish and not as many boats. Tofino is right here. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, I guess the Canadian government thought Japanese living on the coast were a security risk, so they were all moved inland into internment camps in the interior. The government seized most of the boats, and they were taken to New Westminster, where they were all tied up and more or less sold or stripped, or people lost everything there, you know, their cars, their property, their businesses. It was all taken away. After the Second World War, I guess Tofino Council came out with a bylaw which said people of Japanese descent couldn't live in Tofino. Dad ended up in Ucluelet, and Spring Cove was for sale at the time, so he managed to be able to buy it there. There used to be a Japanese store on the beach over there. After the war, Japanese couldn't fish past Badger Reef. I think Dad didn't like that, so he was one of the first ones to go west from Badger Reef. There's, a couple boats would try and push him onto the reef where he would lose his fishing lines, so he built up a name for himself that he wouldn't move for anybody. So in the end, I think fishermen respected his right to be there. Being a fisherman, I have access to a lot of fresh fish, so providing food for people that aren't fortunate enough to go fishing themselves, so it's probably the best food in the world, fish from the ocean, so that's what I like about it.
That was nice. Well, thanks for sharing that. Do you mind perhaps forwarding or emailing that to us?
The energy's here. I need you to.
There you go, a little advertisement there.
I guess that leads into the end of my stuff, but we'll start there first.
Yeah.
I would like to put a dedication up for.
I know, eh?
It's all good, Kev. Take your time, buddy.
Yeah.
Sorry. The Komodo family, for Doug. What I would like to do is change the office. I want to build it the lighthouse and make a fisherman's memorial wall where people can put plaques, the people that have passed, and have it as Komodo Light or Komodo Lighthouse as the dedication to them. When the ladies were up from the DFO, I've told them the idea because, of course, we got to get passed from them. They love the idea as well. So that's what I would like to propose.
Yeah, I think, it's everybody.
Yeah, we're all like, we're like, where's the Kleenex?
Oh.
Yeah, they're here all the time here. It's whatever. Anyways. I'll
So
try,
we'll do
I'll
a
try to
full-
hold it together. I think, Kevin, it's wonderful that you're saying that. And we're 100% supportive of that.
Okay, perfect.
That needs to be done. And, it's, there's a wonderful tribute in the Westerly. I think I got it here, with Doug. I was thinking, whether in the interim we could put some banners or something at the harbor in the interim, because your lighthouse thing is going to be something that's the reality. It's going to be 3 years away by the time we get anything done. But there are some low-hanging fruit items I think we could do with perhaps some banners down around at the parking lot, and really just kind of, I think that's one of the parts of our community that sometimes gets forgotten about. Like what you did in your new parking lot. I think it's fantastic, and those things are low-hanging fruit. Absolutely. And this here, this kind of things is just what we need to be doing. And what you're talking about with your new office and stuff, I think that's great. Who wouldn't want to see that?
Yeah, we should talk to Mary though and see what Mary thinks about it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That would be a good
That's
to
a
talk
good
to Mary,
idea.
'cause she might not want a whole bunch of pomp and circumstance like the banners itself, but I think a plaque, that's
do
a
something
beautiful,
subtle.
beautiful
Yeah,
idea.
and it's not just him. It's going to be other people here. He is an era of our parents of that. There's going to be more and more of that coming up. So having something, so it's not a one-off awkward thing of someone in the district office. That there is something sort of like what we've done with park benches on the Wild Pacific Trail. That is a big highlight for people that have been fortunate to get a park bench. Yeah,
And the history behind it, I think, is beautiful as well, because there's a lot of history here.
Yeah. We can,
That's great.
We
Thank
can make
you,
something
Kevin.
happen, and I can put some options to you guys in November meeting.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin, for taking a stand on that. Where's that report of yours? Anyways, that was good. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Totally.
So good.
Okay, we're done.
Sorry.
My papers are all screwed up here. Can you give me the report? Yeah, just from Kevin. So that was it, Kevin. The rest of it was just information that you were providing of what you had done.
Little update of what's gone on the last 2-3 months that we've last met.
And since we're talking, it's our we are the board here. I think when you look at priorities, Ms. Fortune, with what we just described here, but also parking was one of the things in the master in the plan.
Yep.
And I think it's very evident down there. We've talked many times about how do you fill in that culvert or that ditch in front of the Seaside Motel. We own the parking lot or the road that goes up by behind the harbor, behind the apartments.
Yep.
We know it's a dead end.
Yep.
It's not going anywhere.
Yep.
I think it would be a great opportunity in the fall here to work with adding some more parking, because it's we didn't even have the Americans here the last 2 summers, and they're showing up. And I think having those kind of parking stalls and having maybe some parking stalls where you talk about emergency services, or when DFO or Parks Canada, when they're looking for some, they could already have some reserved parking, berthage or whatever. So I think that would be, I'm going to wait for your report, but those are the kind of priorities I'd love to see happen. That, yeah, go ahead.
I just have one comment about parking for emergency services. From just this summer and the times that we have been down there, I don't know how you could create something that people actually wouldn't just disobey and park there, because it seems like people are parking on every little small meter of dirt that they can down there, and we're fine just blocking people in. If they have to wait, they have to wait. But it's certainly, I don't know how you would create that without people just ignoring what it's reserved for anyways.
Only thing I think is I can cone it. So you'd paint it, you put emergency service. I was thinking just where the fish cleaning stations, that's his easiest area to work with.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And just mark it off, paint it so it's proper, and then just keep constant cones, even if it's cones with concrete in them. When you guys show up, just roll them out of the way, and then you guys utilize the space, and then you're good to go.
But even the ramps must be a bit of a bugger for you too, bringing your stretcher down those things sometimes, aren't they?
Not so much at the Whiskey Dock has the problem with the things that are new stretchers. They're too heavy to actually manhandle over them. But quite often we'll have fire or, search and rescues come in, or Coast Guard. And as far as having to, lift up, it's been done. So, yeah. And half the time they get brought to us. And so I really aren't complaining that much.
With Whiskey Dock ramp should be replaced by mid-ish October.
Yeah.
He's just getting
okay.
He's just getting the material now. So
You building that in town?
Larson's.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's town. Perfect. It's awesome. No, perfect, Kevin, and we look forward to your November one. I think it's having the master plan is going to give you the ability to go like, look, this is a priority, and we need to get it addressed. So it's great. So I'd love to get you a new office too. Okay. Bang, bang, boom, moving along. Okay, I'm all messed up here now. Yeah, give me where's your agenda there? Oh, there it is. Okay. 9.3, Euclid Small Craft Harbor Mortgage Rates Review, Ms. Fortune.
Yes, thank you. Joy, would you mind putting up the... So while Joy's pulling that up, I just wanted to go through a couple things with you guys just for clarification, so everybody's on the same page. So you'll notice that, there we go. Oh, that's small. Okay, we can start with that. Thank you, Joy. So one of the things I wanted to point out to you guys is we're the only harbor authority that actually has quarterly and semi-annual rates. As you know, the semi-annual rates are the brand new ones that we just started. We don't have an analysis on that yet. We'll probably have an analysis next year because that's just started. So that's just something to remember. The recreational vessels high and I meant to add it, that's high season, and that's May to October. And recreational vessels low are low season, being November to April. So there are a variety of minor changes. They're actually not that significant, but at the May 25th, you asked me to give you a bit of analysis and move forward, and these are my recommendations. Of the charter vessel operators, we're the only ones on the island that actually offer that rate, and so I am just recommending that it stays as is. So there's no changes. Okay, for commercial vessels, if you look on the proposed amendment side, I think that's the easiest way to do it. We'll keep our 20 cents that we currently have. We do not have a weekly commercial vessel rate, so that's not applicable. Monthly, we'll maintain what we currently have. Quarterly, we'll keep it. So the commercial vessel, as you can see, is basically the same. The big change, and it's minor, is the annual. So my proposal is going from $15 per meter. No, foot. Thank you, Kev. To $21.26, which is the island average. So there's not major changes on that one. And the annual seems to be the biggest discrepancy between the island and what we're charging. So that's my recommendation for that end of it. So I'm going to walk you through the recreation vessels high. Okay. So I'm proposing the island average. We go to the island average, which is $1.22. That we stick with our current weekly, and will become apparent in a second. So if you go to the monthly, I'm proposing that we stick with $7. And then when we go to the quarterly, that's where I'm proposing a jump. So it's in line with the island average monthly. So we go 7 to 18. That makes sense. And then we stick with the semi-annual rate, which we just previously established. And then we go to an annual of 55. Now, the reason why the annual average for the island is 76, 77, and I think if we jumped that high, there would be some backlash. So we're trying to find the happy medium with this. So this is what we're recommending. Any questions on that one before I go to low? Does that all make sense? My pretty diagrams. Okay. For the recreation vessel low season, we'll stick with our Yuki amount, which is 60 cents. Then we go to weekly, keep it at the same. Monthly, we keep it at the same. And then it's the same thing as the high season, where we mimic the island average for monthly, move that over to our quarterly, keep our semi-annual the same, and then the bump comes in annual. So as you can see in front of you, there's really not a lot of changes. There's kind of a bump in one or two of each category, but the big difference is the annual. So that's my proposed amendments. And what I wanted just to point out is the UQLIT on the left is what we're charging right now. Island average in the middle, and the proposed amendments looking at both. And we took in, when we did this, we looked at Tofino, Port Alberni, Port Hardy, Campbell River, both, they've got 2 boat basins, and UQLIT itself.
My question is for the charter vessel operators. There is no different rate for a charter vessel than a recreational vessel at anywhere else on the island?
That is correct.
I find that so then my opinion of that would be, if I guess the general concept, and that's kind of seems crazy to me, that if somebody is actually running an operation and of financial gain, that they're paying the same amount for the space for somebody going out on the night bike. I don't know. I'm just, but obviously that's, yeah.
Do you charge, is there an onboarding fee that you charge, Kevin, for charter
There's an
vessel
additional
operators?
The wharfage fee of $500. That's on top of that. Yeah, annually.
And when they all get in those great parking spots, they don't pay for any parking down there.
You mean vehicle parking?
No vehicle parking.
There's no pay parking.
And there's no paying at the boat launch either.
Not at the moment, no.
At the moment. Oh, did you have intentions?
Possibly.
Okay. No, I think it's, these kind of things, the user groups, there has to be some kind of contribution towards this.
Then my question about the $500 annual, do we know what the average island rate for that would be at other?
I don't have that.
Just out
Kevin,
of
do you have
curiosity.
thought?
I'm wondering if that's, a deal or that's exorbitant or we.
That's something I could bring back to the Harbour Authority if you'd like.
There was quite a discussion about this about a year ago about the onboarding fees and through some of the charter operators, and it would be has there been a discussion about that? There was just some people that it would be nice to see the different prices for that. I think
I can get that back to you. That's no
something
problem.
I'm not trying to squeeze them too much. At the end of the day, last year was terrible for them, and it's good to see the activity. But, I became first name basis with a lot of them here this summer. But they have a good thing going on down there. The district is providing a spot for them to go in and out of the water. They're providing bathrooms. A lot of them are, they pay for their Wi-Fi, and they've got a great dock. They've got a fishing, station. I think we're doing our part. I don't want to squeeze them too much, but I think it would be nice comparison. But also, just you must have an email list of all those charter guys, right? And we've never really done a survey or a real quite. I know that you did that in your master plan.
Yeah, we did.
But it would be, I think, for me, it would be appreciated to actually send some of your 50 main top users going, hey, thank you for using Ucluelet. Bing, bang, bang. Are you coming back again? What are some things that you would like to see us provide? So those quick little survey is just what we can do, for 2022. And maybe you can talk about some of the things that the Harbour Authority is planning to work on, as Ms. Fortune just listed. Would people be able to access this master plan on the district website?
Yeah, once you have adopted it, we will.
Okay.
We will put yes.
So I think it would be, I don't know if you guys are supportive of it.
And maybe also just outlining the services that have been included, like what they have been given and how they feel about that. Also, because there is a fulsome thing going on there for them.
Yeah, I think the survey is really important, but also let's look at the average island for that onboarding thing, because I know this came up a couple of years ago. I think it was through the chamber now that I've got my head screwed on tight. That a lot of the operators were coming and talking about that onboarding fee. So it would be interesting to see.
It's.
I think we have to support economic development and all these charter operators, but where are we falling short, or if we are falling short?
There's the line.
Do you need me to make a motion in order to write this up? So I'll move that. I'm sorry, I hate doing off the lip here. I'll move that. We send a thank you survey / what can we do better letter to all the charter operators for 2021.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Well, that's a different motion. That's a different subject matter, if you don't mind. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And now about you. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to get a comparison for onboarding fees for the next Harbour Authority meeting.
Absolutely.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Ms. Hort?
That's Doctor.
Doctor. Or, sorry.
I'm just curious why the charter operators are paying less than the recreational in your proposed annual. You've left it below.
I'm going
I
to
know they have the
toss
onboarding, I know
to
that, but
Kevin, I actually don't know the history on that. Kevin, do you have a bit of history on that?
They were at one point paying less. It's just in the proposal. You can see the Yuki at $44.55, which is now. They were slightly above. That might be something to address if we are upping the recreational to 55. We should also be maybe looking at upping theirs.
It seemed appropriate to me that it should be, it seemed a little odd that they would pay less than a recreational vessel at that point.
Yeah.
So
Good point. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, you don't need this. It's not a showstopper that this be amended today and changed. If we can push this off to the next meeting with some of the information that you're going to provide for us.
Or do you want it sooner and it could be pushed to a council?
It's totally up to you guys.
It doesn't mean that we're not charging increases until this is done.
What we're charging right now is what you see on the left-hand side under UQLIT. So in order to increase, you guys would have to make the recommendation to go to council for the amendment for the bylaw. Joey, yes, thank you.
So, but in the reality, it's insignificant in the bottom line. You know, it's like the season's over. It's empty. So whether she does that today or whether we do that in November, it's not going to change the bottom line for him. So I agree with you.
The only thing, if I may, is not that you guys have to make this decision today. But it's two separate issues. One is an onboarding issue, and one is a mortgage rate issue.
I agree that it's two separate issues, but in my head, it's kind of
together. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
I just don't know why we wouldn't move that we're going to bring to council the rate changes, and then we can always come back and amend after the comparison as far as the onboarding thing, because that's a different topic.
My only issue is I do feel like the proposed amount for the charter.
So we would bring that amended.
Higher.
I would, in my head, I would rather table it and come back as a whole to understand the whole.
I agree.
Lay it out.
Then we can cross out what that first number should look like, that 4650, if we need to change it.
Instead of coming back and going again.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The motion of the survey was, from my understanding, was seconded and it was carried.
Just the annual rate.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that the annual rate for charter vessels is too low. Yeah. On the proposed amendment, I feel it should be up. So yeah,
okay.
It should be more than recreational, I feel.
And just to clarify my whole understanding of this and my whole way I'm saying to bring it back is it would be nice to have those survey results really in too by November so we could actually look at the big picture, don't you think? No.
If I may on that one, it might take a little longer than that.
We're already in October here, like honestly.
So that's the thing. I know that it's not the busy season and the we're not, raking in huge amounts of money, but it's still dollars left on the table if we didn't amend things now, and then we can always come back and amend them again. It feels like we have so much money that we don't need to collect a little bit more sooner than later, especially if it's going to take longer than the November meeting to get the other answers that we want. Fair enough. Sure. Another 6 months. Well, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, it's going to be two Harbour. It's going to be two meetings. You're right. It's going to be the next one, and it'll be the following to make the thing. You're right. So she's
it's half a year, and then we're almost done. Then we only have half a year left. Just saying out loud right now.
But could we just throw a number out and amend that one number? And could I throw out $60?
I would second a $60 friggin' whatever that thing
charter vessel annual rate.
I would second that.
Okay, you got a seconder. Any further discussion? I would like to ask the harbor manager, $60. You're talking a $60 annual per foot rate, correct?
Correct.
And what's your thoughts on that? Because you know the audience down there.
Yeah.
If you're upping the recreational rate, it is somewhat proportional to the change. So if the pushback is it went too high, then the example is everything else went up as well. So it's a bit of a sliding scale. It's hard for me because I'm financially benefiting to really make a decision on or make a motion on that. So
How did you come up with 60?
It does proportionally make sense if you look at the increase on the.
Previously we were $250 higher than the recreational rate. We bumped the recreational rate almost $11. It just made sense to
I
bump.
like it.
Yep, I agree.
It's-
I like your math.
It's random math at the end of the day. That's what you get.
You're
I honestly can't. I feel like I need all the information before I can make a decision.
So you're looking for the information on the onboarding, which is like really, which is not really relevant to the
it's kind of
per foot rate, right?
It's not relevant, but it's kind of relevant in a sense of like the whole proposed amendment in my head about the per foot rate. It just kind of goes under that same umbrella in my head.
But we know that they pay that onboarding, whatever it is, they pay that onboarding at other places. They don't pay, I'm assuming they pay like a recreational rate, like it would just be the same as a recreational rate at other places. So
And
we know that they're paying the two things at other harbors. We just don't know what the average onboarding is.
And we already upped the recreational rate, and it is actually only $5 more.
It's okay to disagree. I just can't get my head around
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
Honestly, it's
either you're gonna do a decision. We could do a decision in our next meeting with some information, or you guys could approve. We got a seconder for 60.
Can I add not through the mayor, but through the commission authority? One of the things, once the mortgage rates amendments gets approved, then it would go to council for the bylaw amendment, and the more onboarding would have to do the same thing in terms of bylaw amendment. So one of the things that could potentially make sense is in the November meeting, we could have the mortgage rates and the onboarding rate, so that when we're doing the amendment, it's one amendment as opposed to two amendments in a row, just as an option.
But I thought you just said that we wouldn't have the information required for the November meeting, all the fulsome information to be able to make that decision at the next meeting.
she just said about the survey results we wouldn't have for the next meeting.
Don't we want the survey results before we decide to have that change made?
So can I get some clarification in terms, because the survey results wouldn't be funding.
Yeah, survey results
Yeah,
was the feel good.
But it might change how we're feeling about changing funding.
Not for me
That's
personally,
why we'd be
yeah.
asking for it, to see if people feel like they're getting value or not. It would skew how we feel. It will skew how we feel.
It's
It
just I
should.
remember the conversations that have come up through the chamber.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it's so important to have all this information before we make, and if we're going to come out with these new rates and then all of a sudden pull them back or do whatever, it just makes us look like we don't.
Well, I don't think we'd be pulling back any of these changes based on new information. We just wouldn't be.
The survey information might lead to, changing something regarding onboarding, but onboarding's not actually involved in this particular one. This is solely mortgage rates. I don't know. I feel like I've got enough information for mortgage rates, but I understand where you're coming from.
Councillor McEwen, what are your thoughts?
I see the logic in the increase for recreational. I'm not happy about it.
Me neither. Me neither, for the record.
It's going to cost me an extra
$6.
$470 a year.
Yeah.
But now that we have the option of semi-annual, it means that I could potentially keep my boat at the dock in the winter months and not in the summer months. So that's why I was pushing for that semi-annual rate, to give boaters that option if they can no longer afford an annual fee that steep. And I'm happy to go with the $60
There you go.
annual for the charter vessel
Perfect.
operator too.
Well, thank you. That was a wholesome discussion. I didn't think that was going to happen today at the Harbour. So I'm going to call that one to question. So all in favor? Proposed as you stated with the $60. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. No, I think it's good. It's all good. Man, oh man, is this an indication of how public hearing is going to go tonight? Like, man, oh man. Whew. We better get some chocolate bars, I tell you, before everybody starts growing horns. Okay, moving along. Resolution tracker. Obviously, there's a few things from last year that, or 2 years ago, that are unfinished, but hopefully we'll see those in the near future. For this, it is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Okay.
And the signage is up at Seaplane Base.
I noticed that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, moving along. Any other business? Hearing, seeing none. Any questions via Zoom? Thank you, sir. Any via telephone? And any via email? Excellent. And there's no closed session. So we are adjourned. Thank you.